I've made a video recently in which I drew an ammonite with ink using a paintbrush. I quite liked this experiment, so I decided to make even more paintbrush ink drawings. Well, hello there, I'm Detroit. I've said it all in the hook before the intro, so we can get right into it. Let us start with what I would call a warm-up drawing. It's the first of the three I'll be showing today, and to be honest, I don't really like it. It's either too simple or too complicated to look good, and my hand was too shaky but not in a good way. So while I make this arabesque, I'll talk about the paper for a bit. Just like the other drawings, as well as the ammonite I mentioned before, the paper I'm using is from a Canson paper pad. It's the Canson XL recycled pad labeled drawing. It's A4 in size, with a weight of 160 grams per meter squared, and it has 50 sheets. The paper has large grains that you can clearly see with the naked eye, which means it feels rough and thick. It is thick indeed, considering the amount of ink I'm using on these drawings, but it never bled through. The paper pad itself is spiral bound, or coil bound, and the paper sheets have micro perforations, which makes it easy to detach each page. I find it much easier for these videos to draw on a single page rather than on the whole paper pad. Spiral-bound sketchbooks are very nice because they are easy to use and you are not bothered by the bindings, unlike typical books, especially when there are a lot of pages. On the other hand, you always have to deal with the uneven side close to the metal spirals. The pages will always rise a bit close to the binding, which is why I prefer to take the page out. But when I'm done, I would like to be able to put the page back in, but of course I can't, so instead I put the drawings in a separate binder. In any case, this Canson paper pad is very nice. It's affordable as well, which makes it a good option for a start. I really like Canson products. In my area, it is the easiest brand to find, and I've never had trouble with the quality. Canson, if you're listening, I'd be open for a partnership, by the way. And that will be it for the first of today's three drawings. I'll do this drawfee style and put the finished drawing now. At the end of the video, the three will be side by side. Let's move on to the first proper drawing, by which I mean the first I actually like. I actually made it about a week after the other two, but you don't need to know that. This is a well with ghosts coming out of it. I debated having hands coming out as well, but I cannot say confidently I would be able to draw hands with a paintbrush without messing up. My hands are still quite shaky and I still haven't found the proper way to hold and use a brush. This is a learning process. I got inspired to make this drawing when I was looking over my backup hard drive the other day and I ran through all of my past drawings. One of my first ever digital doodles, from maybe 6 years ago, was this one, named Never Get Lost in the Dark. I was experimenting with my Wacom intros and Photoshop at the time. I decided to revisit it with ink. It also highly resembles this digital doodle I made like 3 years ago, I think. It's called Well for obvious reasons. I like drawing wells. They are a nice subject as far as storytelling goes. There is this mystical aura about a well because it's hard to see at the bottom. It's underground, it's old. I don't know, it's nice to fantasize about. It makes me think about this phrase you often see in web novels. If you don't know, I'm a big fan of translated Chinese Xiangxia novel series. In fact, I wrote 2 novels in the same genre a couple years ago, which I stopped writing because it took too much time and I wanted to focus on other things. Anyway, the phrase you often find in these is someone being a frog at the bottom of a well. It basically means that someone thinks they're hot shit, but they don't realize they are in front of a true master or expert. Usually you would have an arrogant prick talking about fighting a big shot without knowing the big shot will absolutely destroy them. I like the frog version of the saying because it's very similar to the philosophical concept of Plato's cavern. Just like in Plato's cavern, where someone is tied up and only ever sees shadows on a wall, the frog at the bottom of the well sees just a small part of the sky, and yet it thinks that this is the entire universe. Only by getting out of the well, or alternatively the cavern, would one realize that their view was highly misled, and that reality is much bigger than them. Or that there are always stronger people, in the case of punch fighting in Chinese light novels. As for this drawing, you are free to imagine a well in which many people fell and died, and their spirit is back to haunt the living, hence the ghosts flying out. I hope you like this drawing. With the paintbrush, everything kinda looks like a tattoo flash, I think, which is cool. Now, let's get into the third drawing. For this one, I couldn't say what the inspiration is. I love the style of Macbeth, so the character whose head I'm drawing is made in a similar manner, especially the hole-like eyes and mouth. Because yes, what I'm drawing is a hipster-looking guy whose head is a house. In fact, to be sure you understand what it is, I even wrote "my head is a house" at the top. Just to be sure. That was actually a good exercise in simplification, because I started inking without knowing how I would texture the hair and the tiled roof. I had to find a pattern flowy enough, but that wasn't too dense. And once again, the result really looks like a tattoo flash, and to me it looks really cool. This sort of drawing that comes from somewhere in my brain I myself wouldn't be able to pinpoint really makes me happy. I have so many ideas and projects running around in my mind, it's always nice to see that I can still think of something new on the fly. I can take a blank page and immediately start making something wacky, even I couldn't have predicted. For me, it acts like a reset. Sometimes you have a list of projects you absolutely want to work on, but the more you think about it, the harder it gets to actually do it. Because of your expectations, pressure, whatever have you. I've been unemployed for 19 days now, and this is my 5th video in that time. I also wrote about 10,000 words for my book project. I repaired an old phone, cleaned my oven, tidied and labeled all the cables in the box cable of doom, which is now the happy box of cables. Oh, and I spent 5 days traveling in Tunisia. All of that to say that I've been very productive, and I always have stuff on my mind, either short, middle, or long-term projects. Making a video is a short-term project, repair a phone is mid-term, and working on my book is long-term. And yet besides that, I think it's still important to leave a place for the extremely short-term stuff, such as taking a blank piece of canvas and letting your mind roam free. Don't shackle yourself with your own project and expectations. You also have to live in the present and reset every once in a while. It's a way of grounding yourself, I would say. On a completely different note, after finishing this ink drawing of the house head hipster, I was told that the smoke from the chimney kinda looks like a 2, the number 2. It's not, it's just bad planning on my part. Had I drawn a house head previously, I could have made it work, but here I really should just have made the smoke a different shape. And that is about it for this really pleasing looking drawing. Paintbrush inking is very fun to do, and it's a really good coordination exercise. You learn a lot while doing it. You know what? Why don't you check out my Instagram pages? They are right here on the screen, and you can also find links to them in the description. That would be very nice. You can also take this time to subscribe and like the video, because how else are you gonna find the wonderful content I upload every week? I'm Detroit, and I'm just here to have fun. Bye!